Greetings to everyone visiting our channel. Our family is the most precious thing we have. They help us live in this world and cope with any difficulties. Today's story is about that. Mrs. Lou Porter was sitting at her desk in her little house filling in documents. Now nothing kept her here, and the woman made her final decision. At that moment, there was a knock on her door. She did not want to see anyone, and she shouted, "Nobody lives here anymore." The knocking on the door continued, louder and louder. Limping, the elderly woman got up and walked to the door. When she opened it, a letter fell down. It was from the notary's office. Mrs. Porter was informed that the inherited apartment after her daughter would be transferred to her granddaughter if she lived with the grandmother before they started the process with the inheritance, and to her son-in-law if her granddaughter lived in another place during this period. The woman knew about the terrible bad manners of her granddaughter, but she could not let her daughter's second husband get her apartment. Lou agreed to the strange desire of her daughter, whom she had not seen for many years until her unexpected death. At this time, there was practically a drumming on the door. The woman went to open the door a second time. This time, a 15-year-old girl was standing on the doorstep, provocatively dressed with multicolored hair. Without another word, she rolled her suitcase on wheels and began to search the room. The girl's name was Angelica. This was the woman's granddaughter. From the first moments, the girl did not like the woman. She said that everything in the house was too old and that it wouldn't hurt to change a little. The woman besieged her, saying that the girl was here only because this was the will of her mother, according to the documents. The girl grinned, sat down on the sofa, and put her shoes on the table. "Here, you are right. I only need to survive here for a few months, and then I will get out of here," she said. The elderly woman warned that the guest should not dare touch anything, if of course she wants to live here until she receives the inheritance. The girl was sitting there with huge headphones from which she was listening to music very loudly and was blowing bubbles with her gum, so it was not known whether she heard her grandmother or not. But she became interested in the booklet on the table. On the first page, a large inscription read, "Golden Paradise, a place for a new life." "Is my grandmother going to move somewhere?" Angelica asked. Mrs. Porter angrily snatched the booklet from the girl's hands and said that it was absolutely none of her business. The grandmother was so angry that she did not even offer her granddaughter to have dinner and choose a place to sleep. Lou left her room at night to have some water. Her granddaughter fell asleep on the couch. The woman noticed that it was cold, and the girl was sleeping in the clothes that she had came in. She was clearly frozen, trying to curl up. "How could I not give the poor child even something to cover with?" The woman was upset and immediately brought her one of her best blankets. The next morning, Angelica woke up and realized how warm and pleasant she was. She was covered with a blanket, and next to her on the table there was delicious coffee and fresh buns with porridge. The girl happily reached for her food. When the grandma came in, the girl thanked her for the lovely breakfast. The woman made a stern face and said that she was preparing everything for herself. Angelica smiled, but did not object. She realized that her grandmother did not want to confess that she was kind to her. When the girl tried to watch TV, Mrs. Porter took the remote control from her and started changing the channel. She stated that in this house they would only watch what the hostess wanted to watch. The girl sadly replied that now she understood her mother who had run away from here. The woman glared at her granddaughter with anger. She replied that her daughter chose the most worthless bum as a stepfather for Angelica, and he made a fool of her, and because of him, she left her mother. Angelica tried to convince her grandmother that it wasn't good for her to be angry at her for her mother's mistake, but the woman only insisted that Angelica could not touch anything in the house. So, days passed. The grandmother and granddaughter hardly spoke. One day, Angelica suddenly fell ill. She got out of bed in the morning, but felt the floor disappear from under her feet and lost consciousness. When she woke up, her grandmother was sitting next to her with tears in her eyes. "Finally, you woke up, my dear," the woman said, addressing her granddaughter. The girl realized that her grandmother had taken her to a room which she had previously been forbidden to enter. She asked what room this was. Mrs. Porter finally burst into tears and said that Angelica's mother had lived here since birth, although now there is almost nothing left of her things. The girl asked why her grandmother did not leave her because she was a bad granddaughter. The woman replied that it was impossible for her to allow something bad to happen to her loved one. "The blood of my kind flows in your veins, and that explains everything," the grandmother added. After that, she gave the girl a pill and let her have a nap. The next morning, Angelica felt much better. She made breakfast in the morning. When Lou was leaving the room, she as usual grumbled at her granddaughter to not touch her things. But the girl smiled charmingly and replied, "Grandma, stop grumbling. Let's have breakfast instead." This was the first morning they happily spent together. The girl thanked her grandmother for her kindness and told her that neither her father nor her stepfather had ever done a single good deed for her. Mrs. Porter replied that life is generally unfair and she cannot replace her mother or father. When there was a knock on the door, Angelica went to open it. The postman gave her a letter with the Golden Paradise logo on the envelope. It was an invitation to the grandmother from the nursing home where she was going to move. Angelica tore it to shreds and threw it away and told her grandmother that the address was wrong. The girl got involved in the household. She enjoyed cooking, washing dishes, cleaning the house, and watering her grandmother's flowers. Lou thanked her granddaughter very much. In their free time, they played cards, watched TV, and even listened to the rhythms of modern music. One day, the girl went to the store, and when she returned, she saw a car with the already familiar Paradise logo near the house. An unidentified man took out suitcases from the house and put them in the car. The grandmother was standing nearby. The girl ran up and hugged her. "Grandma, who is this? Where are you going with this person?" she almost shouted. Mrs. Porter replied in a lifeless voice that her request to the nursing home was approved, but for some reason she did not receive the letter. Angelica admitted that it was she who received the letter and tore it up. Lou was surprised to learn that her granddaughter did not want her to leave. The girl cried and screamed that she did not need the inheritance, but she needed a grandmother because she never had a loving family, and when she appeared here, her grandmother decided to leave her. Yes, at first she came here to live with her grandmother only because of the inheritance, but she could not imagine how this would end. Mrs. Porter felt that her granddaughter did not want to let her go, but she knew that everything in the elderly people's home was ready for her arrival. The woman allowed her granddaughter to live in the house all the time before accepting the inheritance, kissed her, and got into the car. Lou saw Angelica running after the car for some time and shouting for her not to leave. Finally, she stopped, turned around, and drooping her head, walked back. Suddenly, a lot of feelings burst into the soul of the elderly woman. "God, what am I doing?" she thought, and asked to stop the car. She apologized to the center representative and rolled her 2 suitcases back towards the house. At this time, Angelica was in a hurry to collect her things. She did not want to stay in the house for even a minute where everything reminded her of her grandmother. The girl ran out with a small bag, wondering where to put the key. At that moment, Lou approached the house. They looked at each other for a long time, hugged, and cried. Each of them realized that this is it, real happiness, a family and a loved one nearby. Appreciate your loved ones while they are still in your life. Only they will support you in difficult times and will love you just for who you are. That is all, friends. How did you like the story? Share it with your friends and family, and also subscribe to our channel if you have not done it yet so as not to miss new videos. Bye!